Welcome back to episode 14 of the One More K podcast, powered by Lecker Nutrition. My name is Marcus. Great to be here back with you guys. I'm here today with Ned from Singapore. Good afternoon, Ned.
Good afternoon, Marcus. You've lost your mind, man. It's the morning. It's because you're in America. We have everything covered. I'm in the morning.
I am jet lagged, that's true. But I'm glad to be here. And we have another special guest today with us. It is Sam Harvey from Christchurch, New Zealand. Good afternoon, Sam.
How are we doing, boys? Marcus, Ned.
Good to see you. We have the whole world covered. Morning, afternoon, San Francisco, Christchurch, Singapore. We've got the whole world going on.
Exactly. So, Sam, thanks for joining us. It's a big pleasure having you on the show. This time, I leave it to Ned to introduce you, but Ned is our massive backyard ultra fan, has been talking about it nonstop every episode. So, Ned, why don't you introduce Sam to our One More K audience, please?
Absolutely. So I think you guys, as Marcus rightly says, I think Laz is the absolute man. I know you must have met him, Sam, because you must have met him multiple times and he must have rung that bell in your face more than once, as we know he's walking across America. But I actually started following Barkley. I'm going to say, so I'm old, Sam, I'm 56. I started following Barkley in the 90s. So I've been ultra running since the 90s and you could barely follow it then. And even when he started backyard, I don't know if you know, Sam, but I think the first backyard that he held in his farm, I think the winner was like 30 yards or something. I mean, man, you would have won it before lunch, man. I mean, but obviously the last few years, I did my first backyard during lockdown on my treadmill in my bedroom. And this is the way to go. So yeah, I think backyard is the future. And Sam, you kind of burst onto the scene. So would love to, in the video, and then we'll talk about breaking point, but we'd love to hear a little bit about your backstory, Sam. But you said you quit your job. So what was your job? Then you said you're a professional running bum. I'd love to hear the story, man.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd been in a sales job in the property industry for just shy of 3 years. I actually, what's it, April? So May last year, I quit my job and just, I don't know, had a month or so just to recover from the ordeal that job entailed. That was right around the time that I ran Dead Cow Gully. So I think I quit my job. Actually, I went to Ultra Trail Australia to do the 100K. Went there with the intention. I was like, I hate my job. I just need a little bit of a refresher. I'll have this little holiday. I'll go away. I'll come back. I'll be reset and I'll be fine. And then I don't know. It was a very spiritual race. So I have a special place in my heart for Ultra Trail Australia. Instead of getting that reset, I was running the race and I was like, nah, you just need to quit your job, bro. So I just came back to New Zealand, quit my job. Had 4 weeks of just recovering and training and getting ready for Dead Cow Gully. And then that's where I assisted in at the time, what was the world record for the Backyard Ultra. And took my PB at the time was 46 loops, 308 kilometers, and I more than doubled it up to 101 loops or 677 kilometers over the space of 4 and a bit days. So pretty much just been full-time running and coaching for the last almost a year. I did get sucked back into the corporate life from November to January, thinking I could make it work, and then I very quickly said, "No, I'm too insubordinate. I can't work for people anymore. I've built my business in running, and this is where I need to stay. So I'm sorry, guys, love what you're doing, but I have a place, and it's not here."
So for any of the corporate listeners who tuned in to give Sam a shitty corporate job, you're out of luck, right?
Pretty much.
Fair enough. Well, listen, Sam, we're going to dig into the whole story. Good. Thanks for the intro, man. We do a bit of a news section first, so we're just going to cover that in the first 10 minutes. Then we're going to dive into kind of more in-depth about backyard and your plans for it. Marcus, what is it? I think you wanted to cover the Boston Marathon to start.
Boston Marathon. Did you guys follow it, watch it?
It's an interesting phenomenon. I love to run, but I don't love running. I'm not massively interested in the sport, so I don't ever really know what's going on. I'm a runner. I'm not into running.
Okay. I feel right now I'm the opposite for me. I'm into the following of the sport, but not too much into running. But it's also okay. Well, let's give me also an update for you here, Sam. We had an exciting race actually in Boston with Sisai Lemma finishing up the Boston Marathon in 2 hours and 6 minutes and 17 seconds. Pretty impressive run for him, especially because the favorite was Evans Chebet from Kenya, who only came third place. So there was a bit of an upset on the men's side.
And only third.
Only third.
And third, like, again, so I'm being old, like 207 or 208. That used to be like real. If you're an African runner and you're only running 207, you're like third class now. Like if you're not running 203, 204, you're not, because Boston's a slow course. It's crazy how the times have changed.
Yep. And the woman, no surprise, Helen Obiri came first, 2 hours, 22 minutes and 37 seconds. Only just 8 seconds, 8 seconds before Sharon Lokedi from Kenya as well, in 2 hours, 22 minutes and 45 seconds, followed by Edna Kiplagat, from Kenya as well. So Helen Obiri does it again, coming first in Boston. She is really on a run. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with her in Paris this year.
They can make some real money now. Like, again, running used to be no money. It makes me think. So I don't know if you guys, let's have a bit more fun here. Sam, because you don't follow running, you wouldn't have seen this. There was the Beijing half marathon at the weekend. Marcus, you saw the story?
I did see that actually.
Okay. Okay. You're not into running, but when it goes batshit crazy, you're into it. Like
I think it popped up on my reels, and I just saw these dudes like ushering the Chinese runner into the finishing chute.
He said afterwards, right? So look, what the African dude said was, we're pacemakers. Like, I don't know why they gave us numbers. We were pacemakers. So that was his defense. The other two guys didn't say anything. So who actually knows? But yeah, it was pretty funny. And if you saw the Chinese guy, he's quality. He's 103 guy. So he's a quality guy. He's no joke. He was broken at the end. And the African dudes were jogging behind him. It was, I don't know, fun.
Not sure I can take it too serious. But talking about China, we can take serious the North Face 100K race happening in, I forgot the name to be honest with you right now, Monganshan. I apologize. The North Face 100 Monganshan. Here's a picture. Anyone watching can see a beautiful picture of Monganshan in China. It's a race that happened for many years. North Face 100, very famous. Despite that, I can still not find any results online. And this is my weekly rant, how I cannot find results from China easily. It's a shame that those names are not easily be found. Who's winning the 100K race? I can only say the pictures look great. Ned, do you have any news on who won the race? I couldn't see anything online.
I Run Far, I think, covered it. They had like a little bit on it, but like just a tiny bit on it. But one thing no, not really. But Sam, just to ask you, have you raced in Asia? Have you raced in China? Have you raced in Thailand? Have you been up this part of the world and raced?
What parts of Asia have I raced? I've raced in China. That might actually be it. I might have only raced in China. I've been all through Southeast Asia, Japan, China, Indo, Malaysia, Vietnam. But I raced in China in 2018 doing the CMAR races, which is like their adventure racing thing that a lot of high level Kiwis go over and do like teams of 4, and it's pretty good money, and you're racing some crazy locations and like some really fairy tale type geographies. Like you'll go up through a mountain pass and you'll be climbing, you'll come up over the top, and you're in a rainforest, and then all of a sudden like you think you're going to drop down into this next valley, and then all of a sudden there's this like little town, and it's like all like stuck on the side of the rocks and stuff.
So you were an adventure racer first?
I've done a bit of everything.
There you go. So China, you're right. Like racing in China, like we couldn't find the results for this race, but the race last weekend, they had 5,000 people. Like the money, there's real money and real racing up there, and there's a lot. I mean, it's good that you've raced up there. I think a lot of
I look forward to doing a lot more racing over there. It's kind of not surprising that you can't find the results, because it's like I don't know, there's almost this like shroud of mystery around racing in China. Like even once we were entered, like there was no clarity as to like certain stuff, and like there's obviously the language barrier, but then it's almost like a lot of the Chinese race directors kind of think it's a joke, or like think it's like part of the experience, and you do kind of get, you come to that conclusion as a Westerner racing over there. It's like this is part of racing in China. Like there is some level of shithousery. Like you might turn up and be staying in a 4-star or a 5-star hotel with all the bells and whistles put on, but then the same race director at a different event, you won't have organized the accommodation, and you'll be sleeping like on the tar seal under a gazebo without like beds or anything.
Wow.
Proper adventures.
Yeah,
But
so you
also,
just
I
never know
think
what you're going to get with China.
it's actually maybe interesting. I mean, you can't find results and you can't find any of the athletes. You don't know how good they are, and then suddenly they come to UTMB and crush it. Maybe it's also part
Mhm.
of the game. Like it's like we are doing our thing in China, and then we come suddenly to the world stage, and then no one knows what's going on. I think that's is also a very good way to. It's a mental game as well. How to crush maybe Western athletes. Not
I mean,
dumb.
I mean, the Western athletes aren't coming to China like you look like they don't come, so it's hard to know, right? It's just hard to know from that side. But anyway,
Quickly, last one. Talking money, talking some other interesting things in business. We just had another race join the UTMB World Series. The legendary Arc of Attrition is also now part of UTMB. It is a famous race in southwest England. Ned, you coming from that part of the world, what do you think? Have you been there? UTMB is
so
growing, of course.
we had Florian, who is the CEO of UTMB International. Sam, as I'm sure you know, UTMB is struggling with its people's perception and the whole shit that went down with Gary's and everything. Florian was a super good dude. Like honestly, he was a super good dude, and he was open. He said, "Yeah, look, we got some stuff wrong. Like, but we're not this big bad ogre. We don't like stomp in and just gobble up races, and we don't. We are nice people, and we're trying the best. And sure, is Iron Man a bit of a private equity hardcore play, but." Yeah, he is going to be buying races. I know a little bit about this arc. Clearly, they're a business. They want to make money. They're buying the races that are doing well. And from what I actually listened to Speedgoat Carl the other day on a podcast with Dylan Bowman, and he was the first guy to sell to UTMB. So he sold Speedgoat to UTMB back when. And he said, look, honestly, yeah, it's been a good experience, right? I've made more money. They've made more money. Does everybody love Iron Man? Absolutely not. Do they know what they're doing? Yeah, I haven't raced a UTMB race, but I can tell it's organized pretty well. So, yeah, look, I think there'll be more of it. He said they only buy a few races a year, so it's not like they're buying tons, right?
To clarify, they don't just buy; they buy and they also have races join. So it's and franchise. So it's a three-way model, I think, where it's buying, it's joining, and it's also just organizing for governments. So it's not just buying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Okay.
Maybe that's a good way coming to New Zealand now, Sam. What's going on in New Zealand? How are the races developing? And maybe also already right in UTMB. What's your perception on the UTMB races in New Zealand? How are those competing with the other races that are happening in your part of the world?
I mean, we've only got one UTMB race, and that's Tarawera. That's a great race. It has its challenges. I mean, part of the challenge is like it's set on beautiful geography, and when it rains, it pours, and then they have landslides, and then you can't use lots of that volcanic trail. It just falls into the lakes or into the valleys, and then you can't go that way. So they have that to deal with. Isn't really an ultra marathon in New Zealand on that scale. Fault Line Ultra, which has its first iteration this weekend, that has a heck of a lot of potential, and that has everything from, I'll probably get it wrong, I think the shortest distance is half marathon, but they've probably even got shorter distances than that, and that goes right up to a 100-mile race, and it has the unique feature of finishing in the Wellington CBD, so finishing right in the heart of the capital, which is a pretty major thing. So, and it's already affiliate. I think it's affiliated with UTMB. So like you'll get you'll get a score for a UTMB or a rating with the ITRA. And I mean, yeah, if that goes, yeah, UTMB index race. So yeah, that has a lot of promise. As far as the other ones in the area go, what do we got? There's Tarawera in New Zealand. You've got Ultra Trail Australia, just out of Sydney, up in the Blue Mountains in Australia, and then you've got Ultra Trail Kosciuszko. I haven't raced Kosciuszko, but Ultra Trail Australia is phenomenal. It'd be easily within the top three races or that I've ever done. Super convenient location as well because you can like fly into Sydney. You take one connector train to the central station from the airport. You walk 2 minutes to the next train. You take a train 2 hours up into the mountains, and then you're within walking distance of the race base and all the accommodation. So it's a very convenient race in my opinion. You're like if you want to do it all via backpack, you can. And I got a top 10 finish last year, just with that methodology. Really like kind of took it back to basics. No crew, no fancifulness, and so that's a really cool race. But there's not a huge amount to compete with at the moment. Like provided you didn't have other races, you could hit all of the UTMB races in this sector without them clashing with each other. So Ultra Trail Kosciuszko I think is in December. Tarawera is in February. Ultra Trail Australia is in May. So yeah, you can smash all of those. And then the closest next by to that would be like going to Thailand, or like you getting into like the actual Asian races.
Yeah. Well, there's more going on. Sam, I'd love to hear a little bit about your last couple of years, man. So you introed us to, you hated sales, you love running, you don't like following running. How old are you, Sam? I see you're in the below 34-year-old age group. This is what UTMB. How old are you?
I just turned 31.
31, there you go. All right. Some other numbers. You were 10th last year at Tarawera, but this year, holy shit, man, you went second. How good was that?
Yeah, a bit of redemption. I mean, like in all fairness, last year should have probably been a fourth place finish.
What happened?
Zach Miller turned up from the States, and he's like number 2 in the US at the moment. And he did the Zach Miller thing and just like took off out the gate. And I figured, fuck it, I'll go with you. Like nobody else wanted to fight, and I love a fight, so I just went with him, which might not have been the best strategy. So I kind of redlined the tank for the first 4 hours of the race, which I did again this year, but I guess I have a little bit more capacity now. Yeah, so basically just went out the gate way too hard, got the nutrition, hydration wrong, and I got pretty beat up with my shoe choice last year. So there was just a few different things that went wrong. I just probably didn't have the control, and it was the first time I'd ever had like a professional level training block. So I'd done like 3 months of like elite work leading into Tarawera last year, and I think I was just maybe like a little bit overconfident in my abilities, or so confident in my abilities and my training that I had overlooked the fundamentals of nutrition, hydration, and appropriate pacing.
It is. I mean, I adore Zach Miller. Like he is. When you watch like Billy Yang's film of Zach, he's just like this total fucking lunatic. Like I can understand how you must have been like, oh my god, it's Zach.
But usually the Tarawera race, the biggest hill climb happens around the 120 kilometer mark. So basically you're 120 k's in, and then you've just got to do this massive slog uphill. Well, because the landslide had happened and they had to change the route, instead of it being at the 120k mark, they just made the race start line at the bottom of that trail. So we just went out on the steepest climb, the steepest, longest climb of the whole race from the gate, and he charged off up the hill, and I charged up off the hill, up the hill with him, until I had a catastrophic headlight failure, and then I was running by his light in the dark for a bit, but it was like very trippy underfoot, and even him having the headlight, he was falling over. So like me trying to like get by with the flickering light of his headlight, yeah, wasn't a thing. So he was falling over, I was falling over more. He got a bit of a gap on me. I was burnt out, and then he left me behind.
And does that? So he go on and win? Did Zach win?
Yeah,
Yeah.
considerably. What was it? Was it? I can't remember if it was 13 or 14 hours. It must have been like 14 hours, maybe 12 minutes or something, which for 100 miles is pretty tasty.
Not too bad. But do you? So I'm interested. You're doing backyard and what we would call normal ultra trail. Does second at Tarawera get you to UTMB? Do you have interest? What's your setup now, man? Because backyard, I don't see Zach and Killian and these guys hanging out in backyard streets. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I'm a runner and I run backyard ultra, UTMB, 24-hour racing. It's all running. It's actually kind of funny. I think it was 2000, sometime in 2021 or 2022. I was around about the time that I was like, I'm gonna have a good crack at ultra marathon, and it was like when I started to like throw everything else out, like no more rugby, no more boxing, no more triathlon, no more downhill mountain biking, just like I'm a runner, let's do ultra. And it's in my one of my diaries somewhere. I basically said, right, how do I get to the world champs? And I identified world champs in the 24-hour. I identified world champs in the backyard ultra, and I identified world champs in trail, which is so UTMB, bigs, and 24-hour champs, and then I made a pathway to get to all of them. So I identified like what were the races in New Zealand or elsewhere that I could easily get to and qualify for these world championship races. And there's just this like spider web of all these different races, and then it like culminates in the world champs. And yeah, as of last year, I went to so as of the end of 2022, I qualified for the Backyard World Championship for 2023. I was supposed to be on the New Zealand 24-hour team in Taipei last year, but I just turned that down because I was kind of like done with my racing for the year. I'd been on the team for about 6 months or more, and I just had no desire. I was like a little bit questionable about the whole Taiwan situation. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to be in such a brutal, unenjoyable race and also in a risky area. So I flagged that one. So that was two of my world championships qualified for, and then that second at Tarawera, I believe puts me on the elite A list for UTMB. So that gets me a spot. If it was under the old system, I would be at UTMB this year, which I'm not. Under the new system, I get to UTMB next year, which I actually prefer because the thought of beating the hell out of myself over 173 kilometers with like what 10,000, 12,000 meters of vertical isn't super enticing right now.
So okay. So look, I know Marcus has put that up your results and your UTMB, so you can go next year. Sam, just
Oh, that's funny. Just as you're looking at that, it shows the Mount Oxford Odyssey, which is the 50K I did last weekend, and they've
got
got it there with 2,253 meters of vertical over the 50K, which is what I thought it was going to be. And by the end of it, it was like 2,860 or 2,840 of vertical. So it was a bloody steep 50-kilometer race. It's funny that they haven't corrected the vertical because man, that was a punishing race.
that looked 2,800 is a lot in that time. To ask before we kind of get really deep in the backyard side, were you like you mentioned boxing, triathlon? Were you like a talented sporty kid? Like did you always know you were going to be a sports dude? Because it sounds like you're high level now, but were you high level as a kid?
I would say I was like a jack of all trades and a master of none. So like I enjoyed sport. I was athletic. I wouldn't say I was ever very like really good until my last year of high school. I was playing in the Press Cup, which is like here it's like the highest level high school rugby competition. So I was playing for the school instead of a club for a change, and I was hitting the gym pretty much every day uh, for I don't know 3 hours a day quite often, and running on the treadmill a lot. and running in general a lot as my fitness for rugby. And that was kind of where I was starting to get to maybe a more elite level. And well, yeah, starting to get my shit sorted at least. Next few years I was at university, and yeah, I guess I did like a couple of duathlons, and I played a lot of rugby, drank a lot of booze, wasn't super duper anything. And then but it was around about sometime I was at university that I was like I wanted to become a professional athlete. And around about that time I was doing a lot of enduro mountain biking, and I thought that was where I saw my future. I was watching a lot of Red Bull Rampage and a lot of Red Bull slope style, so like people getting big air, doing crazy jumps and stuff. And I had like lots of pictures of people doing backflips and canyon jumps up on my wall, and that's what I wanted. But then after a few years of like doing that and racing and stuff, I realized that I'm chicken shit and I'm not so good with two wheels in the air, even for a couple of meters, let alone 3 stories high up in the air doing backflips. So I kind of called it quits on that. But for the next kind of few years, from let's say 19, I was doing as many sports as I could. So I was, yeah, enduro mountain biking, triathlon, boxing, rugby, like you name it, I'd have a crack at it. And I was just I had kind of painted this picture of myself as being a polyathlete, like I was gonna be a master of everything. And I think that's just a little bit ADHD. It's like I'll just have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you get pulled in so many different ways and spread so thin that you never really get good at anything. But it was good because like at any one point in time I might have at one point in time over a summer I had a race every weekend, and sometimes I would have a race on a Saturday and another event on a Sunday, just really like smashing it. But it meant I got a lot of reps in a very short period of time. And I guess that helped me to find where I was best allocated. Like I very quickly found out that like cross country mountain biking was not my jam, and yeah, it allowed me to delete things from my system and then focus more on things that I liked. And yeah, that got me more towards the running. And 2022 that I really smashed on the running, and I think I won like every backyard ultra in New Zealand in 2022.
I remember seeing that. Well, a couple of things on that, Sam. First of all, when you turn on Rampage and you see what they're doing in Utah, that is not just a couple of wheels off the ground, man. Jesus. Like, I sometimes turn that on. I'm like, are they actually doing that? Like, some of the stuff they're throwing off those kind of sandstone cliffs in Utah is a little out of hand. But the other side is doing Saturday and Sunday. Now let's get into backyard, man. Like, you don't just do Saturday, Sunday. You do Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and we can maybe talk about Wednesday as well, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully this next one will finish on Thursday morning, and I'll be a happy boy.
Well, let's talk about that. So, look, I think you're right. You had a best of 40 something yards in 48 loops. You'd won every backyard. The Breaking Point Dead Cow Gully documentary. Not only was it beautifully filmed, it was one of the epic races. Would love to hear your view on it because, yeah, when it got down to 3, I'd just love to hear your take on it, Sam, because it was beautifully filmed. Non-runners massively enjoyed. Even though you didn't win, I think you can appreciate you were the star of the film. But I'd just love to hear your take on that experience.
Yeah. First of all, shout out to the young lad who filmed that. So that entire production is filmed by one young dude, Daniel Hayter. And he's not even a runner or anything. He's just a young lad with a camera and a drone, and he was just Johnny on the spot. And like, he wasn't wearing running shoes or anything. He was wearing like brown office/school shoes, and he was just a man getting the job done. And he was everywhere. Like if something went down at that event over that 4 and a bit days, like he was there with a camera. It was crazy.
You say, Sam, that he's not a runner. You've seen the race that eats the young, the Barkley, right? What Laz said, the reason that film was so good, it was made by non-runners. When you make a film about running by non-runners, it appeals to the non-runners. Wow, one guy did all of that. Amazing.
So yeah, amazing film, very well shot. I've watched a lot of running movies and a lot of documentaries, and that was something special. So Dead Cow last year was interesting. punishing. It was brutal. It was a whole lot of things, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't ever run a race like that again because I feel I'm so in control now. Like that was a level of fuck around and find out, even though I was so confident in my abilities. Like I was more than doubling my personal best. Like I was taking my personal best and then adding like 370 kilometers to it. But as I say to a lot of athletes, nothing changes between loop one and loop 101. Like it's still 6.7 kilometers. You've still got an hour to run that. You still need carbohydrate, sodium, and fluid every hour. Provided you're ticking all those boxes, nothing really changes. Yeah, you get tired and you get sore and things get a little bit more difficult, but yeah, you do one perfect hour and then you replicate it and you just replicate it hour after hour after hour. So I knew having run a few of these things and having never really been pushed to my upper limit, if I was to just continue using my systems and processes that I'd already developed, that it would take me to the world record.
What about your so I don't doubt that that is right because that is backyard. How did your mind hold up? Because you guys, I mean, you went deep, man. How was your mind holding up?
I mean, obviously, like you're a little bit emotionally raw. So like there's highs, there's lows, there's tears, there's laughter, there's all sorts of shit. I was pretty good. I got to the 300-mile mark, which is 72 hours, and I like came into like the race base and I was very silent. I just grabbed my mum and like took her to the side, and she's like, "Oh fuck, what's wrong?" And then I just like hugged her. And we just like had a bit of a cry because like 300 miles is no mean feat. Like even elite top level athletes, they're like, "Yeah, I ran 100 miles." I'm like, I did that 3 times. And then I did it one more time and a bit after that. But the 300-mile mark really got me because it was the third morning. There was only three of us left in the race at that point. So I think maybe leading up to that point, like through the night, we'd maybe had like one or two more people still in the race. But after that point, there was just three of us. The sun had come up and it was like these are the champions of the race, and it's like kind of significant. I had to get my shit together because I was still crying as we like went off into that next loop, and I was like, if I don't get this under control, I'm going to probably start to seize up because my mind my mind body connection is probably going to get broken. My mind's going to think, oh, we're done, and then the body's going to say, oh, we're done. Okay, shutdown time, and then I would have fallen off. Um, the first 2 days of that race wasn't anything special. It was more or less like as it always is, like getting through the boring bit and convincing myself not to give up early because like there's so much work ahead of you, and there was a very nice sunny beach only 2 hours down the road that I could have just like given up and headed off and gone on my way. But yeah, you have odd thoughts like that. Once we were into the third day and there was only like a handful of us left, then all of a sudden I was like, oh, now we're racing. Now I'm not bored anymore. Like now it's the interesting bit. I was pretty well in control as far as like not having hallucinations or anything, and I think that's because my hydration and nutrition is a little bit better than it has been previously. I'm probably a lot fitter than I used to be. 91 loops or something like that. Then I was like, "Ooh, we still got multiple hours to go until the sun rises." The last few hours of the night are always super lonely and hard to get through, and I'm like every time I went from a run down to a walk or a stand at that point, like my legs would go all like jelly. So I wasn't like super in control, and I knew that there was a high level risk, even if I was in control, that something out of my hands would happen and maybe I'd crash and burn and we wouldn't get to the world record. So at that point, once Harvey was out, I was like, if we're gonna ensure we get to this world record, I need Phil to like run with me. So I like put that message out in camp at the end of that loop. I was just like, make sure Phil runs with me until we get to sunrise because I I don't want to roll the dice and have something unexpected happen when we're so close. Because me and Harvey were looking after each other through the darkness, but as soon as Harvey was gone, it was like, oh, safety net gone. Who knows what's going to happen after this point?
Well, look, thank you for that overview, man. That's the wild thing, right? Like the whole idea of the assist. And I must admit, so I've watched the movie a few times. Obviously, I knew Phil won, but there was one point that if you weren't watching, if you didn't know the result, when you walked back in and you said, "Has Harvey come back?" And they're like, "No." You're like, "Go and get him." Like you seemed totally, i.e., you kind of had this. It felt like that dude's gone. I'm still running. And it's interesting to hear you because he was your safety net, right? But you'd walk back in and said, somebody needs to go and get Harvey. It was interesting to hear that two of you were supporting there. And you then went on, you said, I think it was at loop 99 or 100, that you will take Phil to the world record. At what point did you know that you were going to be the assist?
When everybody told me that I wasn't allowed to continue. They wanted to pull me out of the race at like loop 95 or something like that. And I said, fuck that shit. I'm not going anywhere. I came here to get a world record. And if you're not going to let me take the world record myself, I'm at least going to be the assist to the world record. And like, it's only another 6 hours from this point. I've run 95 or whatever. Don't pull me out now. Like, I look like crap. Well, you'd look like crap too if you'd run 600 and something kilometers.
You had pneumonia apparently coming on, right?
Yeah, I had a chest infection in the lead up to the race, and that just progressed throughout the course of the race, which happens.
And then at the end of the show, you said, "Watch out, Tennessee! I got big plans." Right? You went to which is probably the best backyard field. Not probably, it was the best backyard field ever. And I listened to a pod, some guys, either you were on it talking, that you came out of that, you feel a momentary mental lapse. Is that fair, Sam? Or what happened at Big? Not what happened. You did great, man. But obviously you're a confident dude. You want to go in there and win.
Biggs wasn't quite, I wouldn't say it wasn't quite the, the race that I was expecting. It was just very different. Usually a backyard ultra is a bit of the fun part about it, it's kind of like a festival. Like there's tents, there's a camp base, there's a lot of runners, there's a lot of crew people, and then there's just a lot of spectators. At Biggs, Laz said we were only allowed one crew person, which that threw a spanner in the works for like almost everybody, because like I think at peak I've had maybe 6 or 7 people as my crew for one of these races, and you're expecting me to run for 100 and something hours with one person crewing for me. That's a lot to ask for that one crew person. So that made it very difficult for everybody's crew. So everybody had to like kind of team up and make friends and stuff. Made it easier for the likes of the Belgians, who I think they had like 7 athletes there. So like 7 athletes, 7 crew people set up under one gazebo and work as a big team, where everybody else has kind of got to work on the fly. I probably should have just like shut up and got the job done a bit better, rather than complaining about like things that other races put on that weren't put on there. So little irregularities that I shouldn't have let phase me. The last few hours I was like really struggling with my teeth.
What was up?
Got quite sensitive teeth, and I think over the course of the race I ate something like 75 Oreos, and I was just getting like massive electric shocks in my teeth, and I've just been to the dentist, and we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe in the last like day or so I just like kind of let my dental hygiene slip a bit, so I should have been like brushing my teeth a bit more often to get the Oreos and the other sugary garbage out of my teeth, so they didn't flare up with pain. So that was one of the things that kind of, it was almost like the straw that broke the camel's back, because the last couple of hours I hadn't had like any carbohydrate, or an insufficient amount of carbohydrate to perform, which is sad, because at that point in time, like I was running the fastest loops out of anyone. Like I was strong, I was confident, and I just kind of let like a little 2 to 3 hour window, probably more like a 1 to 2 hour window, like get my train off the track, which I mean that's all it needs. You only need one bad loop and it can be the end of it. But it's funny that you raise that point, because I I've obviously not been in the sport a hell of a long time, and I'm one of the youngest athletes at the top level. And so as a result, like I've grown a lot over the last 6 months, 12 months, 2 years. And I kind of had like, it might have been this morning, or it was either this morning or yesterday, I had an epiphany that like when I quit at Bigs at the World Championship, I was totally happy with my decision in the moment. I was like, no, I'm done. Fuck this race. You can have it. I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna go to sleep in my gazebo, and I'm okay with it. And the following day, I was completely comfortable with that decision as well. Like hung around, waited for Harvey and E14 to get to the end of the race, and then it wasn't until like another day after that I like woke up and was like, "What the fuck have you done?" I was like, "You were so close. Like it was in the palm of your hand, and you could have just taken it, and you you copped it up." But at the same time, in the last day or so, yes, I could have won it, and I could have won it quite confidently. Like I had days left in my legs, not just another day. I had days left in my legs. I was still so strong. Uh, but maybe it wasn't the way I wanted to win the world championship or the world record, because now that I've started like lifting a lot of other runners up, like giving away my secrets and schooling everybody up and leading people, and especially leading into this next world record attempt at Dead Cow Gully, I could be a machine and be very closed off to all the runners in the race and kind of take souls and win it that way. Or I could kind of look after everyone and lead and give away those secrets, but also make sure people go as far as they possibly can and look after people rather than kind of being so cold and cut off. And I can still win it that way. And I think that'll be a more poetic way to get my world record. Like Phil got his world record, and he was doing the Phil thing, just not talking to many people, just running real fast loops. Nobody could keep up with him, and that's how he won Dead Cow last year. And Harvey was he was looking after a lot of people during Dead Cow Gully last year. He had at one point in time, I think he had like 12 people following on with him. But he said this was for that only happens in like a regional race. When he gets to a world championship race, he doesn't look after people. He just focuses on his mission. And I think there was an aspect of that for him when he got his world record. Like he was head down, like game face on, take some souls. Where me, I think I would like from my world record or world records to lead and look after, and then I'll have a lot more fulfillment when I do get to the end and do get that world record. However far the distance is, if I've actually looked after people along the way. So
Sam,
everything for a reason. Uh,
man, look, it's such a weird, like, isn't it amazing, right? You have to be an absolute killer, right, to win, right? But you can also do it in the right way. I mean, look, this is a gladiator sport, right? Let's not mess around, right? Like this is only one person wins, right? Everyone else. But you're right. I love that idea. There's some pretty deep soul to it if you think about it, because look, you talk about going to the world record in 2 weeks in Dead Cow Gully, but you need
3 weeks, I think,
you
something like
need
that.
you're right. Like if you just go out and just do Sam things and don't care about nobody else, everyone drops out. You're not getting no world record. I love that idea you have, man, that it's got to be a little bit more than just doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I want to try and be a little bit less cutthroat and a little bit more leader. Make a few more friends out there.
But okay, let's say you get to Dead Cow Gully, you can be friends until there's just two of you. And if you get past, the world record's 108, right? Like, do you want 108, 109, or you just said already you want 5 days, right? Where do you want to get to?
I want 120 as my next target. I do want to be the first runner to hit 1,000 kilometers in the Backyard Ultra, which will be around 150 hours. But there's a few steps in between to get there, and 120 I think will be a good start, especially like we have some top level Australian athletes there, but still me asking them to go 120 hours is still like, I want to say 40 loops greater than their PB, where 120 hours is only 19 loops greater than my PB, and I know for a fact that I can get there. Um, so 120 is a good start. It'll be 500 miles, 800 kilometers, and I think I fly back on the Sunday or the Monday, so it allows me like a few days holiday before I fly home.
Perfect. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to hand over to Marcus, who's got some other parts of it. At what point, like backyard, how much of your soul does it take, Sam? Like you, everyone who's watched Dead Cow Gully, man, they were like that. Even if they didn't know running, their comment to me was, that dude went deep. And, I've done backyard, I've done Ironman, I've run a couple of 100K, Sam. It takes some time to get over it. Does it? How much of your soul does it take every time?
It depends on the race. That took a lot out of me, and then and then to rub salt in the wound, 9 days later, back in New Zealand, I did another backyard ultra. So I did the 101 loops, and then 9 days later, I did 43 loops, and I won that race. And I turned up on the start line of that 43 loop race, and I was on the start line. I was like, "Fuck, I'm still tired. Like I'm not just hurt, but I'm tired to like the core of my being." And I'm like, "Damn." I'm like, "Oh well, we'll see what happens." And yeah, so that was hard. For the next month after finishing the second race, I was just lost in space and time. I was so disoriented, like couldn't even tell my wife at dinner whether I wanted tomato sauce on my fries or not. Like I was like, I don't know, that decision's too hard for me to make right now. That's how much of a lost cause I was. And and I went into into World Champs a little bit terrified because I just assumed to like get to the 100+ zone that's how much of your soul you had to pay to get there. And like people were talking to me because at World Champs, I was one of only 4 people to have completed 100 loops. So they all kind of looked to me for guidance. They're like, are you excited? And I was like, no, I'm fucking terrified. I'm not excited about this because I know how much this is going to hurt. But instead, because I've got a really good dietitian, I had my nutrition sorted, I had my hydration sorted, and I had a few other little tricks up my sleeve. I was actually fine. Like I got to the morning of the 4th day, and I was just like, I'm on fire. Like I'm so strong right now, which was crazy for me. So it gives me a lot more confidence setting further world records because I know that like you don't actually have to die in order to get there. Like you can thrive rather than surviving.
Well, look, Marcus, I know you wanted to ask some particular questions. Look, Sam, I'm excited to see you at Dead Cow Gully, man. I asked that question about the soul. I've never been as that deep, but there was always this phrase from the old endurance guy. I'm sure you know Mark Allen. And Mark Allen said, you can only go to the well so many times, right? And when they said the well, he meant right at the bottom, like right at the bottom and the bottom of the well, right? It digs a little. You can't do that every Saturday, right? You can race every Saturday. You just can't take chunks of your soul every Saturday. So
I went because I've like obviously done, I think it's like 10, 11 backyard ultras in the last couple of years. So it's like quite a lot in a compacted amount of time. And I did kind of get to the point at Big's backyard where I was like, I've done too many of these fucking things. Like I need a break. Oh, and then I like tried to copy my like Dead Cow Gully followed by the 43 loop win by running Bigs and then 2 weeks later coming back to New Zealand and doing Arrowtown. And my Achilles blew out during that. But like while I was doing it, I was like, I need a break. Like I had another backyard ultra in America planned for like January or February. I think it was January this year gone, and I just cancelled it. I was like, no, I do not enjoy force feeding myself because like the backyard ultra is a force feeding competition. You're drinking 500 to 1,000 mils of electrolyte, not just water, electrolyte, 1,000 mils sometimes every hour for days at a time. You're force feeding yourself with food, and it just gets a bit crushing. And I was just like, yeah, I need a break. I need a couple of point to point races. I need some 50Ks, some nice little 100-mile races, and get my love for it back, because yeah, you do take something from yourself every time you do one of these. And it's interesting because there seems to be a little bit more of a consensus on that side of things within the backyard space. Like, there was a lot of people that I spoke to at the World Championship, and they're like, I don't enjoy this format of racing. Like, I don't know why I'm here. It's like, it's kind of weird to get to a World Championship and like the best runners of all the nations are like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? And then even within New Zealand, there's a lot of guys who have been like kind of trying to get onto the New Zealand team, or they're on the New Zealand team now, and they've done upwards of like half a dozen of these races in a very short period of time, like maybe 12 to 18 months. And even they are like, yeah, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. I'm like, yeah, because you've pushed it too far. Like, go do something else. Like, stop doing backyard ultras for a while. It's like, this hurts you.
Wow. Switching gears a bit, I'm curious about your professional athlete life. Which
Okay.
race do you think was the one where you turned professional inside you, and also in terms of perspective of other people, the perception of others?
Well, that's a really nice question. Bravo. That's really
He's the
well
brain.
thought out.
Marcus is the brains. I just talk shit, Sam. Marcus is the smart dude in this partnership.
Nice, nice. No, I like it. Phew. I mean, obviously, like it's a journey, and there's like a series of races. There's very seldom like one pivotal moment. Uh, I think Dead Cow Gully was pretty pivotal. I mean, obviously, it's world record. There's only been like, I don't even think after world champs, I don't even think there's 10 of us in the world that have done more than 100 hours. So that's pretty significant. And I already had the belief in myself that I was one of the best runners in the world. Like, I held myself at that top tier standard. It's one thing to believe it in yourself. It's another to prove to the world that you're at that level. And all of a sudden I went from number one in New Zealand, which didn't count for much because number one in New Zealand was still only like 26th in the world or something, or 30th, 30 something in the world. But by running that, it's like, oh, actually, you're second equal in the world. And so that generated a lot of talk, had a lot of people reaching out to me, made my sponsors very happy. And then not just doing that world record, but like following it up with that 43 loop run the following week. It was like just taking crazy and then like magnifying it a little bit. And off the back of that, that's where I got my first professional contract. So it was, yeah, that was the little window where it kind of set it all off, because that professional contract is kind of what gave me the confidence to finally launch my coaching business, which I'd been working on in the background for like a number of years. But my process has always been like, to teach, you need to be credible. To be credible, you need to do. And the thing that I want to do is run. So I basically kept on kicking the can down the road and raising my standards. Like, I was like, once you win all these races, then you'll be credible enough as a coach. And then once I'd won all those races, I was like, well, now you need to win the national championship and have the national record. And then I did that, and I was like, no, now you need to be world champion and have the world record. And I just like kept on raising the bar and kept on saying it's not the right time, but there's never a right time. And once the sponsor came on board, I was like, I'm national champion, got the national record, I've equaled the world record, and I got a professional sponsor for my running. I'm like, I'm probably credible enough to tell people how to run now. And
For sure.
so that's what I did. And yeah, it's pretty much been my
Also,
full-time gig since.
you're also joining at a time where social media is covering these kind of races more and more now. I mean, all these
Mm.
documentaries getting 100, 200, 500,000 views. We talked about just Barclay Marathon a few weeks ago, where tweets reach 2-3 million views each tweet. How do you deal with this new fame, and how does it work for being this backyard guy, ultra guy, which is usually by yourself in the woods, compared to being watched 500,000 million times online?
I wouldn't say I'd still say it's like minor fame. Like it's not like I'm blowing up on a daily basis. Like after DPI Gully and the world record, like my social media for the next like couple of months was just like I couldn't reply to messages as fast as I was receiving them. Like I was just had like an inbox of like hundreds or thousands of messages at a time, which was quite overwhelming. Which is obviously like died down a lot now, and I can manage it. Yes, I can see with the trajectory that it could blow up a lot more, and then it'll get harder to deal with. And I've slowly been like implementing systems and processes to deal with that, as far as having like priority contacts. So like only certain people can like actually get through to me at any one point in time, and then the rest it kind of like sits in an inbox that I don't actually have to deal with, and that way I can deal with my clients and my family rather than like the masses. So there's that. But just try not to turn into too much of a dick about it, I guess, is the key thing. Like there are a few people that turn into monsters with a little bit of fame, and if I can try not to do that as best as possible, then I guess that'll be a success.
Yeah, I do think these kind of runs keep you very grounded in any case. I mean, I think other sports are, it's easier for the athlete to get up into the air and maybe lost a bit, but if you're running 100 hours, I'm sure it's hard to get lost in some ways.
I mean, like it's not like Formula One or tennis or golf or cycling where the athletes get put up on this giant pedestal. It's like you're getting celebrated by doing something very human. And at the end of the day, my chosen sport is somewhere where I run around for 100 miles or 5 days, and I stink like urine the whole time. Like, and so does everybody else in the race. Like, it's not, it's not overly bougie or flattering.
Yeah, for sure. That's very true. At the same time, we see also quite a few people out of the sport becoming entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm one of them. Ned is another one. I like to ask the question, before in my previous life, I was an investor. I invested in many tech startups. And when a young talent came to me with an idea and so on, or no idea, I said, what would you do if I give you $1 million right now? So I will ask the same question to you, Sam. What would you do if I give you $1 million right now? What kind of business would you start in this world if we give you $1 million from the 1 more K virtual budget?
Probably some form of dojo. I've almost kind of created that in part in where I live. Like I live on the side of a volcano at nearly 200 meters above the sea, but the ocean's just there. I've got running trails all around me. Like I'm in arguably the perfect place in the world to train for endurance sports. And at any one point in time, I've had all athletes living in this house, and then sometimes not. I try to kind of tweak it more towards having all athletes here, and I guess it's not really much of a business proposal, because all I'm trying to do is just create an elite a cult of elite endurance athletes that'll live together. But we'll have some fun doing it. We'll have some fun spending your $1 million.
Oh my
I was
God.
just today down in Palo Alto, here in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and like Apple was basically a cult living in a garage for a few years, and then look at them now, right? So any kind of cult creates something amazing, whatever it might be.
It's such, oh dude, I'm probably too old and not fast enough to be part of that cult, but I'll cheer it on. Interestingly, I used to listen a lot to I Am Talk. I don't know if you know Bevan and John, who run the Kiwi show. It's one of the oldest
Oh,
Ironman
Bev,
podcasts.
yeah, Bevan. I did.
De-
I did his extra mile runners course. I think in 2017 or
yeah.
2018 for like a couple of months, and it was like it was the first and only structured running anything that I did. But I think I did 10 weeks with him, training three days a week, and that set a lot of the foundation
Well,
for what run training I did in the following years.
his favorite phrase is, "Do you dominate the dojo?" So on his pod, that's what he says, right? When he says if an athlete did well, he talks about this idea of a dojo, and I think it's great. Like look, endurance. It could be not that we have the $1 million, but we think about it virtually because we've both done some investing. I would have said 10 years ago, making money out of endurance sport was lunacy. It's just never happening. But today you can do it, man. Like the rise of social media, like again, whether it's Barkley backyard, that would be, I think you can really make it a thing, Sam. Like I think that idea of endurance
Oh, I
cult.
totally agree. And a lot of people ask me like what the pathway is to become professional in endurance sport or whatever. It's like there's no pathway. You make shit up, and like if you're creative and successful and you can create a brand and you're marketable, then whatever your idea is, it will work. So like my pathway is unique and it's different to 99% of other professional athletes or professionals within the endurance sports space. So yeah, it just takes the right person to do the right thing.
And I think it is now that, again, without social media, but your point is whether it's like Russ Cook running hardest geezer running across Africa, whether it's Jasmine, whether it's you when you break the world record, like those runs are not like Usain Bolt running 100 meters. We can't run 100 meters, but it's like normal people. I mean, you guys are not normal, but doing it, I think it is so interesting these days.
Mm.
It is so crazy interesting. And yeah, well, we're trying to build a little business off the nutrition part of it. So yeah, let's see if everybody can keep running, keeping their lives going around.
Thanks so much. Wrapping up this part of the show. Thanks, Sam. That was really great. Great to hear what you've been up to. Good luck
No
with
worries, pleasure.
your upcoming race. I think many of us will follow, of course, online. Can't fly down to New Zealand right now, but no, it's quite exciting. Good luck with everything you're doing.
Last year I operated in a bit of a vacuum for the entirety of Dead Cow Gully. I didn't like people were telling me, oh, people were following, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. And then I got to the end of it, and my phone just like I turned it off airplane mode, and I just went pop 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 pop, and I was like, oh shit! But this time I'm gonna try and have some like data roaming so I can actually have my phone going, and so I can like post updates and stuff during the race. So I'll be a lot more present and followable during the race.
Well, we look
Good to
forward to
know.
it. We look forward to it, man.
Now we come to the last part of the show, which is Ned's drop of wisdom and inspiration. So you're more than welcome to stay on this quick 2-3 minutes read of Ned's drop. He is giving us every week his download of his running brain. So Ned, I'm going to hand it over to you as usual to your last part, the Ned's drop.
Cool. And a bit of context, Sam. Like, I don't like reading, but I like writing, and I like writing. I've been ultra running for like 30 odd years, and I found I like writing after I run, and people like to read them. So for this show, I do just some random it's kind of vaguely poetry, vaguely random shit. So here we go.
Mhm.
All right. This one's called 100%. Have you ever given 100%? Like all of it? What is all of it? When are you tired? Exhausted? Delirious? Unconscious? I am fascinated. Why do people stop? It's almost always a choice too early, in my opinion. People stop at 80% because it hurts. Yes, it's supposed to hurt. If you want comfort, watch Netflix. The growth is in the joy of the pain. The pain is the joy. When people say during or after a race, I don't know why I do this. I want to rip my hair out. I scream. Then don't fucking do it. Don't complain. You have no idea how lucky you are. This suffering is amazing. You should be smiling and pushing on. Finish line? Pah, pointless. That's the worst part. Unless you found 100%, which you didn't, because you are listening to this. I have never got to 100%. I've tried. I will always try. Take a moment. Think. Last time you stopped? Why? Really? Were you actually done? Or just told yourself to stop? Because it's not about your body. Your body's just a meat suit. It's about your soul. You'll live forever if your soul never dies. So don't let it die in front of Netflix, cake, and excuses. Build it out there, in nature, on the run. 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, 100%, LFG. You know it makes sense. Don't be the 60% dude. See you out there, Ned.
I like it. It's quite relevant because I noticed at bigs, at world champs, like you're racing with the best of the best in the sport where people push themselves to the end. And I've watched thousands of people do a last man standing race, and it would be less than 1%, even at the top level, that push themselves until their body physically stops. Like it's always a decision. Like, yes, I have seen people collapse and their heart almost give out and they look like they're going to die, but it doesn't happen very often. When it does, it's like, oh, damn, you did the thing. You pushed all the way to breaking point. I've achieved that probably once, and that was at Arrowtown, and my Achilles like blew out to my left Achilles was 4 times the width of my right Achilles. Like I couldn't, like it was bad. So yeah, it's always a choice.
Look, Sam, I love this topic. Do you know? So Tim Noakes. So the Law of Running. So it's the epic book. It was written by a South African professor, and he says this thing in your brain called the central governor. I'll send you some links, Sam. It's called the central governor. So technically, you can't kill yourself by running. Like your brain has a lock. The central governor will stop, and it's at like 80%. But you can't get to 100. But can you get to 98, 99? Technically, you can't run yourself to death. Was his thing. But our central governor, you can step over the line. And the great video you may have seen, Johnny Brownlee at that World Champs when he needed to win. You know the one when he wobbled and he nearly went. I'm like, that's it. That's the dude. Like that. He was like, and his brother picks him up and sticks him on his shoulder and throws him over the line. But you're right, Sam. Even in the elites, I mean, and that's why I wrote this one this week, man, because I thought like for breaking point. I mean, when you were lying on that couch with pneumonia and they said, "Are you going out again?" And you were like, "Yeah." And I'm like, all right, this dude's at 98, 99. This dude is like, he is.
The funny thing was, I wasn't.
Wow.
I wasn't that far. Like I was broken. I could tore my hamstring. I'd lost more than 10% of my body weight. I usually weigh 69 kilos, and I'd lost 7 kilos over the course of that race. So I was very unhealthy, but at the same time, I was still running 49-minute loops.
Wow.
Like unless someone's coming in with like 30 to 60 seconds on the clock, like I reckon they can still go. So I could have kept going. It'd be interesting to see how far I could have gone and how weird it might have got, how bad I could have got.
It is, it's wild. Cool. Well, listen, man, thank you, Sam. We'll be in contact. We'll keep up to date. We'll look forward to you running at Dead Cow. Obviously, you're not going back to Bigs this year because I assume you're in the New Zealand team. How couldn't you be? So you'll be doing the
Correct.
New Zealand one. I'm in the Singapore team. I don't know if you noticed a guy called Joshua Toe, who was the Singaporean dude at Big. So that we had one singer. He went 72 loops. So, but here in Singapore, it's pretty hot. So we don't have the same depth.
I think I remember his face.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember having chats with him, but it was Biggs was weird like that because they're usually such social events, and then you go to have a chat with someone, they're like, "Oh, no hablo inglés," and then you go to chat with someone else, and they speak Chinese, and you're like, "What the fuck? I just want to have a chat with someone." Like nobody speaks English.
What's going on? Anyway, well, we'll see that. Well, listen, man, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for the time. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be following you and looking forward to that world record again, man.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Been a pleasure, guys. Talk soon.